वल्लभा जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यशोदनन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यमुनतीरा वनचारि यमुनतीरा वनचारि जय राधा माधव जय कुञ्ज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुञ्ज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Can you get a Bhagavad Gita for me? Bhagavad Gita? Yeah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. So we'll read from chapter 15. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhvamulam Hadashakam Ashwatham Prayuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Savedavet. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upwards and branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of Vedas." Purport: after the discussion of importance of Bhakti Yoga, one may question, what about the Vedas? It is explained in this chapter that the purpose of Vedic study is to understand Krishna. Therefore, one who is in Krishna consciousness, who is engaged in devotional service, already knows the Vedas. The entanglement of this material world is compared here to a banyan tree. For one who is engaged in fruitive activities, there is no end to the banyan tree. He wanders from one branch to the another, to another, to another. The tree of the material world has no end. For one who is attached to this, there is no possibility of liberation. The Vedic hymns meant for elevating oneself are called leaves of this tree. The tree's roots grow upward because they begin from where Brahma is located, the topmost planet of this universe. If one can understand this indestructible tree of illusion, then one can get out of it. This process of extrication should be understood. In the previous chapters, it has been explained that there are many processes by which to get out of the material entanglement. And up to the 14th chapter, we have seen that devotional service to the Supreme Lord is the best way. Now, the basic principle of devotional service is detachment from material activities and attachment to the transcendental service of the Lord. The process of breaking attachment to material world is discussed in the beginning of this chapter. The root of this material existence grows upwards. This means that it begins from the total material substance, from the topmost planet of the universe. From there, the whole universe is expanded, with so many branches representing the various planetary systems. The fruits represents the result of living entities' activities, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Now, there is no ready experience of this world, in this world, of a tree situated with its branches down and roots upwards. But there is such a thing. That tree can be found beside a reservoir of water. We can see that the trees on the bank reflect upon the water with their branches down and roots up. In other words, the tree of this material world is only a reflection of the real tree of the spiritual world. This reflection of spiritual world is situated on desire, just as tree's reflection is situated on water. Desire is the cause of things being situated in this reflected material light. One who wants to get out of this material existence must know this tree thoroughly through the analytical study. Then he can cut off his relationship with it. This tree, being the reflection of the real tree, is an exact replica. Everything is there in the spiritual world. The impersonalists take Brahman to be root of this material tree, and from the root, according to Sankhya philosophy, come Prakriti, Purusha, and the three gunas. Then the 5 gross elements, Pancha Mahabhuta, and the 10 senses, Dasendriya, mind, etc. In this way, they divide the whole material world into 24 elements. If Brahman is the center of all manifestation, then the material world is a manifestation of the center by 180 degrees. The other 180 degrees constitute the spiritual world. The material world is the perverted reflection, so the spiritual world must have same variegatedness, but in reality. Therefore, both Prakriti and Purusha must be there. In the spiritual world, however, the Prakriti is Supreme Lord's internal energy, and the Purusha is the Supreme Lord himself. That is explained in Bhagavad Gita 8.22. Purusha sa partha parapartha. The difference material is temporary. A reflection is temporary, for it is sometimes seen and sometimes not seen. But the origin from whence the reflection is reflected is eternal. The material reflection of the real tree has to be cut off. When it is said that a person knows the Vedas, it is assumed that he knows how to cut off attachment to this material world. If one knows that process, he actually knows the Vedas. One who is attracted by the ritualistic formulas of the Vedas is attracted by the beautiful green leaves of the tree. He does not exactly know the purpose of Vedas. The purpose of Vedas, as disclosed by Personality of Godhead himself, is to cut down this reflected tree and attain the real tree of the spiritual world. Okay, let's do the next verse. Adaschordvam rastrastasya shakha guna pravriddha vishaya pravalaha adascha mulani anusantani karmanubandhini manushya-loke. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are objects of the senses. The tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. Srila Prabhupada's Ki Jai, purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The description of a banyan tree is further explained here. Its branches spread in all directions. In the lower parts, they are variegated manifestation of living entities, human beings, animals, horses, cows, dogs, cats, etc. These are situated on the lower parts of the branches, whereas on the upper parts are higher forms of living entities, the demigods, also known as Devatas, Gandharvas, and many other higher species of life. As a tree is nourished by water, so this tree is nourished by the three modes of material nature. Sometimes we find that a tract of land is barren for want of sufficient water, and sometimes a tract is very green. Similarly, where particular modes of material nature are proportionately greater in quantity, the different species of life are manifested accordingly. The twigs of the tree are considered to be sense objects. By development of different modes of nature, we develop different senses. And by senses, we enjoy different varieties of sense objects. The tips of the branches are senses, the ears, nose, eyes, etc., which are attached to the enjoyment of different sense objects. The twigs are sound, form, touch, and so on, the sense objects. The subsidiary roots are attachments and aversions, which are byproducts of different varieties of suffering and sense enjoyment. The tendency towards piety and impiety are considered to develop from these secondary roots, which spread in all directions. The real root is from Brahmaloka, and other roots are in the human planetary systems. After one enjoys the results of virtuous activities in upper planetary systems, he comes down to this earth and renews his karma, the fruitive activities for promotion. This planet of human beings is considered the field of activities. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitamena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So this chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita talks about yoga of Supreme Person as God. That is called Purushottam Yoga. So here it is said that this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. Material world is a reflection. So Srila Prabhupada starts the purport by, what about Vedas? Right? If everything is Bhakti Yoga, then what do we do with Vedas? So he says the entanglement of the material world is compared here to a banyan tree. So whenever we are engaged in fruitive activities, karma kanda, then we get entangled in this material world. We cannot get liberation. So what do? We go from this branch of the tree to that branch of the tree, but still we are in this material universe. So this is a reflected tree. So the real tree is in the spiritual world. Roots down, branches up. In the reflected tree, roots are up because they are jointed at the reflection point, and then the branches are down. So how do we get out of this tree of illusion is described here. The process of extrication means how do you get out of this material world. So up to 14th chapter, devotional service is described as best, bhakti. Now, principle of devotional service is detachment from matter and attachment to spiritual activities or service, seva of the Lord. So we don't see such a tree in this material world, but it can be understood through a reflection on the banks of a river or a pond. There, the tree is there, the roots appear up and the branches appear down. The reflection of spiritual world is situated on desire. So whenever the soul aspires for something materially, then we come down. And we are here. So we aspire, that's why we are here. Now the thing is, how do we extricate or pull ourselves out of this material world and go back to our original home, which is this spiritual world. Desire is the cause of things being situated in this reflected material light. So there is the original spirituality in spiritual world, and in this reflection we are here. So we live in this reflection. The tree being the reflection of real tree is an exact replica. So spiritual world is like material world. Material world is like spiritual world. But because it's a reflection, it appears not so great. Everything is messed up here. So basically Sankhya philosophy. What does Sankhya philosophy says? Prakriti means nature. Purusha means the Supreme Lord. Then the three gunas, Sattva guna, Rajo guna and Tamo guna. Then come the gross elements, Pancha Mahabhuta, earth, water, air, fire and ether. Then come the Dasendriya, sense of sight, sense of taste, sense of touch. In this way we continue in this living in this material world. So if you add all these things up, they come to 24. So what is not mentioned in the purport, he mentions elsewhere, Prabhupada, which is the working senses, hands, legs, like that, right? Then we have mind, intelligence and false ego, man, buddhi and ahankar. So when you add all these things, it comes to 24. What is the 25th element? The super soul, Krishna, right? So this is 180 degrees. 180 degrees is spiritual world, 180 degrees is material world. Perfectly in the plane. And he says, in the spiritual world, Prakriti is the Supreme Lord's internal energy. And here it is the Supreme Lord's external energy, Maya. Here it is Mahamaya, there it is Yoga Maya. Material world is temporary, spiritual world is permanent. So here's the key point. The material reflection of the real tree has to be cut off. So we should cut it off. So attachment to matter, when it cuts off, then our path for liberation is ready. Until that point, it's not going to happen. When it is said a person knows a Vedas, like Vedavit, it is assumed that he knows how to cut the attachment to the material world. The Vedic path means cutting off attachment to the material world. But now modern Vedic process is what? Getting more and more attached to the material world. Making more money, more this, more big house, big car, electric car, like that. So if one knows the process, he actually knows the Vedas. So Vedas are Vedavit. Vedavit means somebody knows the purpose of Vedas, not just like a parrot reading shlokas. The purpose of Vedas, as disclosed by the personality of Godhead Krishna himself, is to cut down this reflected tree. The bottom half has to be cut off so that we can go back to the top half, top 180 degrees. Right? So that was the purport for the first shloka. Second shloka, Srila Prabhupada says, the animals, plants, dogs, right, birds, they are all in the lower branches of this tree. And higher branches are all the devatas. So we can also be a devata. We were already devata at one point. We made some mistake and we got kicked down here from the heaven, from the Swargaloka. So now we have to figure out how to go back. Not to just the Devataloka, like heaven, but even higher than that, to the spiritual world. So the description of a place where one goes and never returns is here, given in this chapter. How do you go? What is the process he is given? To gain the favor of that personality of Godhead, one has only to surrender. Surrender means what? Anya bilashita shunyam. So no other abhilash other than serving the Lord. Jnana karma anavritam. Outside of jnana and karma. Forget about knowledge, forget about activities. Anukulyena krishnanu shilanan bhaktir uttama. Anukul means something that is favorable to the Lord, not according to your own fancy, according to my own fancy. So it has to be favorable, then it becomes surrender, otherwise it becomes something else. So let's read this again. To gain the favor of personality of Godhead, one has only to surrender. If we surrender, then we come to that. And this result is this result of performing devotional service by hearing, chanting. So when we hear and chant, then surrender will come later. But first is hearing always. Then comes chanting the Lord's names. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Right? That 9 processes. That who describes that? Prahlad. Right? Dhruva does it, but Prahlad describes it. And Prahlad does it too. Aham sarvasya prabhava. I am the origin of everything, Krishna is saying elsewhere in the previous chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, to get out of this entanglement of the strong banyan tree of material life, one must surrender to Krishna. Must, he uses the term, must surrender to Krishna. As soon as one surrenders to Krishna, one becomes detached automatically from this material extension. So that leads us into the 5th shloka. How did I come to 5th shloka? Oh, 3 and 4 I skipped. Okay, let's do 5th. 5th is a very famous shloka. Nirmana moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kamaha dvander vimuktaha sukha dukkha samnyer Gacchanti amudaha padamavyayam tat. So Srila Prabhupada translates, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Those who are free from false prestige, mana means prestige. Nirmana means no prestige. Moha, illusion. Chitasanga dosha. So you are associating with false things. So you should conquer that association of false things. Dosha. Dosha means false. So fault. So we are getting out of that faulty association. Adhyatma nitya. So and whoever understands adhyatma means something which is eternal. Who are done with material lust, which is vinivritta kamaha. So we all have too much deep kamaha, lust. So vinivritta means dissociation, connection free from material lust. Free from dualities. What is that? Dvandever. Dvanda means two. Dva means two. From there it comes Hindi do. Right? Duality comes from that word as well. Duality of happiness and distress. Sukha dukkha samnyer. Sukha means happiness, dukkha means unhappiness. Gacchanti amudaha padam avyayam tat. Gacchanti. So these such people go to the spiritual world. Where avyayam means something that is eternal. Vyayam means spending. Avyayam means something that doesn't get spent. In spiritual world, the Lord's energy is never spent. I mean, anywhere the Lord's energy is never spent, but particularly so in spiritual world because it is eternal, whereas material energy is not eternal. Very nice shloka, this one. So, Srila Prabhupada explains, the surrendering process is described here very nicely. Like a lot of people ask, right? Oh, Prabhupada says surrender, surrender. Where is it given? So you should refer them to this. 15.5. Surrendering process is described here very nicely. The first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride. So we all fail there. Step 1, failed. Right? So we have to pass that step 1. Get out of our pride situation. Because the conditioned soul is puffed up, thinking he is self the Lord of material nature, it is very difficult for him to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? Because we are puffed up. So what do? Become unpuffed up. One should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not the Lord of material nature. For that requires cultivation, right? Prabhupada uses the term cultivation. Just like if you want some crops, you have to cultivate that in a field. When one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. Prabhupada repeats again. Delusion caused by pride. Like the news is all about Ambani's marriage, right? Ambani's son's marriage. And that is like the highest pride. Some 1400 crores were spent on marriage. They got gifts of yachts, gifts of gold jewelry, jade, right? Each costing 2 crores, 4 crores, like that. What does that do? It increases your pride. That is precisely what we don't need, right? It causes delusion. Delusion is basically, excessive illusion is called delusion. So when one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. Not like he surrendered. Begin. For one who is always expecting some honor in this material world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. So if you are expecting honor, people should praise you. Like the Ambani family, they want people to praise them. All the newspapers are praising them. That causes more pride. So Prabhupada says, pride is due to illusion. For although one comes here, stays for a brief time and then goes away, he has the foolish notion that he is the Lord of the world. Which is true, isn't it? You come here, first 30 years is gone in education and trying to settle down. And then at 50-year point, your kids leave you. So window is only 20 years, literally, from 30 to 50. In the small window, we are so proud. I can do this, I can do that. After that, old age sets in, body doesn't function. Right? So, what are we saying? We come here, stay for a brief time, and then we go away. And then what do? We make all things complicated and always we are in trouble. So the whole world moves under this impression. Right? Not only us, everybody, all 8 billion people are moving under this impression. People are considering the land, this earth, to belong to human society, and they are divide the land. This is America, that is India, this is Gaza, this is Golan Heights, this is Israel, like that. So people are dividing the land and fighting and killing each other. So what does Prabhupada say? One has to get out of this false notion that human society is the proprietor of the world. Human society is not the proprietor. After we die, the land is still there. Right? We are seeing this so many times. People come, occupy a piece of land, they do agriculture, they mess it up, they move to a different part. The land is still there. The land doesn't belong to anyone. When one is freed from such false notion, he becomes free from all false association caused by, number one, family. Family is like the biggest bandham, right? We get stuck in it. Social, right? Mera Bharat Mahan, Mera Pakistan Mahan, like that, right? So everybody has this social network. Oh no, that is national. Social means like your broader circle of family and friends and relatives. First is family always, like wife, husband and kids. We think that we are very tightly bound and we are going to live here forever, happily ever after, which is not going to happen. These faulty associations bind one to this material world. So we get bound to this material world because of these familial connections, social connections, and national affections. Right? One has to cultivate knowledge of what is actually his own and what actually is not his own. Certain things are our own, our soul is our own, but all these possessions that we are accumulating will do in course of time, not immediately, but they'll go away too. At some point they'll go away. Maybe 20 years, maybe 40 years. At one point, the entire country was called Palestine. At one point, the entire country was called Israel. And now it's divided into two and people are fighting and killing. Heavily killing. And when one has understanding of things as they are, he becomes free from all dual consumptions. Right? This is the Sanskrit word, Dvander Vimuktaha. Dvanda means dual, two. Do comes from do. Do means two. Uno, dos, right? Even in Spanish, uno, dos, tres. Dos means two. So this duality is what's killing us. He becomes full in knowledge. What happens when we become free from these dual conceptions, such as happiness and distress, pleasure and pain? We become full in knowledge. And it is then possible for him to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay. So now in this text 6, Krishna gives a description of the spiritual world. Na tad bhashyate suryo na shashanko na pavakah yadgatva na nivartante taddhama paramam mama. Mama means me. Paramam means the ultimate. Dhama means place of residence. So Krishna is giving description of his residence. What does it say? The supreme abode means place of residence, of mine is not illumined by sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. In this material world, we need electricity to glow the lamps that are above our heads. Right? We need fire to cook. We need sun or moon, otherwise we will go crazy if it's always dark. So Krishna is saying, in my planet, I don't need sun or moon. I don't need fire or electricity. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The spiritual world, the abode of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, which is known as Krishna Loka, Goloka, Vrindavan, is described here. In the spiritual sky, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, fire, or electricity, because all the planets are self-luminous. So planets, spiritual world planets are self-luminous. They don't need electricity, they don't need sun, don't need moon. But here we need all three. We have only one planet in this universe, the sun, which is self-luminous. But all the planets in the spiritual sky are self-luminous. The shining effulgence of all those planets, called Vaikunthas, constitute the shining sky known as Brahma Jyoti. The effulgence emanating from the planet of Krishna, Golok, Vrindavan. So, where is the Brahma Jyoti energy coming from? Yeah. Other than this, the major portion of that shining sky is full of spiritual planets, which are called Vaikunthas, chief of which is Golok, Vrindavan. So Golok Vrindavan is also a Vaikuntha planet. So it is not like it is something different. It's also a Vaikuntha planet. And from there, we get the Brahman effulgence or light, which then illuminates other systems. Sun also is a representation of Brahmajyoti. So sun, when you look at that round thing, it is like a portal. It's like a little hole into Brahman. Actually, you cannot even see Krishna, because can you see sunlight for a very long time? Same thing. That is Krishna's bodily effulgence. So it is coming through the sun. Sun is a portal. Well, that is what material scientists say, that this sun is a planet by itself. But the sun has a portal connection to the spiritual world. So that light, Brahmajyoti, is coming through the sun to us. It's like, think of it like a tunnel. So the tunnel, the other end is spiritual world. So from there the light is coming. All you can see is a little circle. And then the tunnel is also moving along with the sun. You could think of it like that. Actually, it is more complex than that. But you could think of it like that. The Brahmajyoti is coming to our planet through sunlight. As the living entity is in this dark material world, he is in a conditioned life. But as soon as he reaches the spiritual sky, by cutting through the false perverted tree of this material world, he becomes liberated. He also means she and all the animals and everything. But we have to cut through the false tree of this material world. But the animals and the birds are at the lower levels of the branches. So it is more difficult for them to. So lower means like upper part of the tree or the lower part of the tree? Lower from the 180-degree plane. from the lower part of the tree. The reflection is, the lower is upper, upper is lower, right, in reflection. Yeah, yeah. Near to the lower levels, I should say, yeah. There is no chance of coming back here once we get liberated. In his conditional life, the living entity considers himself to be the lord of this material world. But in his liberated state, he enters into spiritual kingdom and becomes an associate of the Supreme Lord. There he enjoys eternal bliss, life, and knowledge. So, there we have full Sachidananda qualities. Here we have partial Sachidananda quality. So, we have some qualities of the Lord, but not all of it. One should be captivated by this information. Normally people say, don't be captivated by this. Here Prabhupada says, you should be captivated by this information because it's teaching you the process of what? Going back. Going back. He should decide to transfer himself to eternal world and to extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. For one who is too much attached to this material world, it is very difficult to cut that attachment. If you are attached to this material world, difficult to cut that attachment. But if it takes to Krishna consciousness, there is a chance of gradually becoming detached. We can gradually become detached. If you take to this process, that is what we are all trying to do. One has to associate himself with devotees who are in Krishna consciousness. One should search out a society dedicated to Krishna consciousness and learn how to discharge devotional service. But because such a society did not exist, what did Prabhupada do? He created one, international society. In this way, he can cut off his attachment to material world. One cannot become detached from the attraction of material world simply by dressing himself in a saffron cloth. One must become attached to the devotional service, seva. So Prabhupada never says just devotion. He says devotional service, seva, seva, seva. Therefore, one should take it very seriously that devotional service, as described in the 12th chapter, is the only way to get out of this false representation of the real tree. So, he is now referring to 12th chapter, saying go and read that. In chapter 14, the contamination of all kinds of processes by material nature is described. Only devotional service is described as purely transcendental. The words Paramam Mama are very important here. Actually, every nook and corner is the property of the Supreme Lord. But the spiritual world is Paramam, full of 6 opulences. The Katha Upanishad also confirms that in the spiritual world there is no need of sunshine, moonshine or stars. Na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra tarakam. For the whole spiritual sky is illuminated by the internal potency of the Supreme Lord. That supreme abode can only be achieved by surrender and by no other means. So you cannot achieve it without surrender. Okay, we'll do text 7. Mamevamsho jivaloke jiva bhuta sanatanaham manah shastrindriyani prakritisthani karshate. Mamevamsho jivaloke jiva bhuta sanatanah manah shasthan indriyani prakritisthani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which includes the mind. So see, that's why chapter 15 is so powerful. He gives description of spiritual world, description of material world, the process of surrender, and he gives our challenges, why we are struggling. We are all struggling entities. Srila Prabhupada once said that ISKCON is like a mental hospital. All the crazy people come here to get cured of their craziness. like which he discussed in verse 4, right? We have delusion, pride, madamatsarya, envy, everything we have. In this verse, the identity of a living being is clearly given. The living entity is a fragmental part and parcel of this Supreme Lord, eternally. So we are always connected to Krishna. We are never separate from Him. We want to be separate, we want to ignore Him, but He has not ignored us. It is not that He assumes individuality in His conditional life. So some people think that, oh, I am individual now, separate from Krishna. But that's not true. We are always connected to Krishna. It is not that He assumes individuality in His conditional life, and in His liberated states He becomes one with Supreme. So some people say, okay, after liberation I'll become one with the Lord. I'll merge into the Lord. He is eternally fragmented. Sanatanaha. Jiva bhutaha sanatanaha. Sanatanaha means eternally. According to the Vedic version, the Supreme Lord manifests and expands Himself in innumerable expansions, of which the primary expansion are called Vishnu Tattva, and the secondary expansion are Jiva Tattva, living entities. In other words, the Vishnu Tattva is the personal expansion, and the living entities are separated expansion. We are Vibhinnamsha. Vibhinnamsha means we are separated. And all the Vishnu Tattvas are Swamsha, means they are just like Krishna, but they have these various avatars. There's a substantial difference between us and God, but we also have good proportion of God's qualities. It is said that human beings have roughly 64% of God's qualities. So we are almost like God, 64%. Only 36% delta between us and God. But that 36% is a lot. Like for example, we cannot create universes. Maybe we can write a Java program, maximum, right? That's about it. In other words, the Vishnu Tattva is the personal expansion, and the living entities are separated expansions. By his personal expansion, he is manifested in various forms like Rama, Narsimha Deva, Vishnu Murti, and all the predominating deities in the Vaikuntha planet. In Vaikuntha, there are different planets. Each one of them has, like Narsimha has his own planet. Varaha has his own planet. Lot of information Srila Prabhupada has packed in these purports, from Chaitanya Charitamrita, from Srimad Bhagavatam, from some advanced texts, so that we don't have to go to those advanced texts, at least initially. As fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, the living entities also have fragmental portion of His qualities, of which independence is one. So Lord is Swarat, independent, and therefore we also have some independence. But what do? We misuse our independence in doing what we think is right. And then we get into trouble, because then we acquire what? What do we acquire when we misuse our independence? Karma, right? When activity, then it has to have reaction. Some result has to come out of it. So we have to be very careful about using our independence. Most of the time we are misusing our independence. Almost all of us. Every living entity as an individual soul has its personal individuality and a minute form of independence. So our independence is Anu, small, microscopic. His independence is Vibhu. He is all independent, Swarat. By misuse of independence, one becomes a conditioned soul. Like, what is the proof? We are all here in the material world, which means we misused our independence. And by proper use of independence, he is always liberated. In either case, he is qualitatively eternal, as the Supreme Lord is. So we are also eternal, qualitatively, but not to the same degree as Krishna is. Krishna is eternal, we could say that. In his liberated state, he is freed from this material condition, and he is under the engagement of transcendental service. Means bhakti yoga, bhakti seva. Seva, basically you have to serve the Lord in loving service. Not just like naam ke vaste, just do it for the sake of doing. It has to be with love, and he can gauge it very easily. Whether you are doing it as official manner or you're doing it with love. Right? Even small kids can gauge whether father is saying with love or is he saying with just naam ke vaste, right? Just out of etiquette. In the liberated state, he is freed from this material condition and he is under the engagement of transcendental service unto the Lord. In his conditioned life, he is dominated by the material modes. Conditioning means you are under these three: sattva, rajas, and tamas. In the liberated state, we are engaged in the service, seva of the Lord. So, how do you get rid of the three modes? You just do seva. Then the three modes are not touching. The moment you stop seva, three modes are touching you again. Three modes means sattva guna, rajo guna, and tamo guna. Mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. As a result, he has to struggle very hard to maintain his existence in the material world. Almost everybody from presidents, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, down to somebody who's very poor, everybody is struggling. It's not like one person is struggling and the other person is not. The richer you are, the more you struggle. The living entities, not only human beings and the cats and dogs, but even the greatest controllers like Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Vishnu are all parts and parcels of Supreme Lord Krishna. They are all eternal, not temporary manifestation. So, in this verse, we use the term karshati. Prakriti sthani karshati. What does karshati mean? Struggling or grappling. Very hard. The conditioned soul, all of us jivatmas, are bound up as though shackled by chains, iron chains. He is bound by false ego, also known as ahankar, and the mind is the chief agent which is driving him in the material existence. So, why are we in matter? Because we think we are in matter. See the point? Our mind is putting us in the material world. But if you think that I am a servant of Krishna and I am always serving Krishna, automatically you are liberated. Even in this world you are liberated. But we cannot think like that. Because our mind tells us that, oh, I am a body. I want to live here. So we force ourselves into this conditioned state. It is nobody's fault but our fault. He is bound up by false ego, ahankar, and the mind is the chief agent which is driving him in this material existence. So it is what is required is mind control essentially. When the mind is in the mode of goodness, activities are good. When mind is in the mode of passion, activities are troublesome, too much excitement. And when the mind is in mode of ignorance, he travels in the lower species of life. It is clear, however, in this verse that the conditioned soul is covered by the material body. The soul, Atma, is covered by the sharir, body. With the mind and senses, and when he is liberated in this material covering, when the material covering perishes, but the spiritual body manifests itself in its individual capacity. That is called Swarupa Siddhi. Each one of us has a unique quality in the spiritual world. So when we get rid of this material covering and we surrender to the Lord and do devotional service, then we come back to our Swarupa Siddhi. The following information is there. Madhyadi Nayana Shruti Sava Esha Brahmanishta Idam Shariram Martyam Atirshya Brahma Bisampadya Brahmana Pashyati Brahmanastronit Shrunoti Brahmanaivedam Sarvam Anubhavati. It is stated that when a living entity gives up his material embodiment and enters into the spiritual world, he revives his spiritual body. So we'll all get spiritual bodies when we attain liberation, mukti. Mukti leads to additional bhakti. Bhakti has no end, it just keeps on expanding. It is stated here when the living entity gives up his material embodiment and enters into spiritual world, he revives his spiritual body, and in his spiritual body he can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. So we can actually look at Krishna in the eye and play with him. Steal his butter or allow the butter pot that you are carrying to be stolen by him, like that. He can hear the Supreme Lord, speak to the Lord face to face, and he can understand the Supreme Personality as he is. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is understood Vasanti yatra purushaha sarve vaikunta murtayaha. In the spiritual planets, everyone lives in the body featured like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As far as bodily construction is concerned, there is no difference between the part and parcel living entities and expansion of Vishnumurti. So we are almost like the Lord. We get similar bodily form. But he has a Kaustuba gem on the chest and we won't have the Kaustuba gem. That is difference, only difference. In other words, at liberation, the living entity gets a spiritual body by grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The words Mamevamshaha, fragmental parts and parcels of Supreme Lord, are also very significant. The fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord is not like some material broken part. It's not like one bolt has come off from your car or van and that is the individual living. No, it's not like that. The spirit cannot be cut into pieces. This fragment is not materially conceived. It is not like matter, which can be cut into pieces and joined together again. That conception is not applicable here. Because the word Sanatana, eternal, is used, the fragmental portion is eternal. So we are also eternal like Lord. We separate from him, we come to this material world, but we are also eternal. It's not like we'll die. Only the body dies. It is also stated in the beginning of 2nd chapter that in each and every individual body, the fragmental portion of Supreme Lord is present. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavvanam jara tatah dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyati. That fragmental portion, when liberated from bodily entanglement, revives its original spiritual body. So we get our spiritual body in the spiritual sky or Vaikunta Loka. And what do we do there? We enjoy association with the Supreme Lord. It is, however, understood that the living entity, being fragmental part and parcel of Supreme Lord, is qualitatively one with the Lord. Prabhupada says this again. We are just like the Lord, qualitatively. But quantitatively, we are a little smaller. We are much smaller. Just like a small part of gold is also gold. But we cannot sell it in the market, right? Because it's like a small fragment. Okay, any questions? This is from Srila Prabhupada's translation of Bhagavad Gita as it is. If you don't have a book, you should take one, drop a donation. Do you have one? Please take, drop a donation in the box. Prabhu, go there. Sing. Oh, meet him and go. But we are going to have Aarti, right? Huh? Aarti is done? Okay. Then we'll just sing. Aarti is already done. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. श्री श्री राधा नील माधव भगवान की जय, जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्र जी की जय, सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जी की जय, गौर निताय की जय, लक्ष्मी नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय, आचार्य परंपरा की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय. हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.